Hey Salties, it's Caribbean Chris Aldrich from Saltwater Smarts, and this is episode numero uno of Salt Speak. This is going to be an ongoing interview series where I talk with folks involved in the hobby, anything from a hobbyist to a business owner. So today I'm talking to Nathan Levine. He's the co-founder of Current Labs, and we'll be talking about their flagship product, FishBit, which is an aquarium monitoring and controller unit. So I'll check back after the chat to fill in any blanks. Alright, today I'm here with Nathan Levine of Current Labs. Their flagship product, FishBit, is actually the topic du jour. So I'm going to go ahead and let Nathan kind of talk about FishBit, give us a little bit of an elevator speech, and kind of introduce himself as well.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Really excited to be here, and definitely, really looking forward to talking more about FishBit. So FishBit is our take on an aquarium monitor and controller. We're trying to take a holistic approach to owning and experiencing aquariums, so that it doesn't take all the heartache that it currently has taken to become an expert in this hobby. They're obviously amazing, but there's parts of it that are kind of a chore, and so we're trying to make that part easier.
Perfect.
So FishBit, we monitor currently salinity, temperature, and pH, and we combine that with the controller so that we control all the extensibles on your tank, so your lights, your pumps, your heaters. Part of that means that we're insurance, so if your heater malfunctions, we're just going to turn the power off to your heater. But the other part is making it very easy to set up your lights and have it follow the San Francisco moon cycle or whatever you want. And the approach that we're taking is just, very simple. You don't need to know how to code if that's what you want to do.
Awesome. Sounds good. So basically a simpler version of the aquarium controller, essentially, for folks that don't really want to or can't dig really far into the technical aspect.
Exactly. I think aquarium monitors and controllers are awesome. They provide a lot of value, and we're just we're trying to bring something that's more well designed and easy to use. That just drop in your tank and sets up easily. As download the app, you put in your Wi-Fi credentials, and it just works.
Perfect. So I guess that kind of jumps right into the next thing I wanted to ask you about. What issues did you identify in the hobby that made you decide, we need to create FishBit?
Yeah, so this started because I'm a software developer by trade, and I just wanted to play with hardware. I'm also a fish geek by trade. It was my first job at a local fish store, and so this idea came pretty easily. But as we developed it further, at first it was just for me, but as we developed it further and we started, playing around with all the other controllers and monitors on the market, a couple of things stood out to us. Right now, I think there's a reason why they're not widespread throughout the marketplace, and I think the two big reasons for that are they're very expensive right now, so we're doing our best to keep things at a low cost. That's hard to do, and I don't want to give any definitive price because we're not at that point yet, but we're doing our best to make sure that this is something that can be more widespread. And the other part is that right now they're hard to use. So they're really awesome, but right now it's something that I think people are putting up with because they love their tank and the benefits that they can provide. But it took me 2 hours to set up a different aquarium monitor controller. I'm a software developer. I definitely know my way around tech, and it that just doesn't seem the way it should be. So I'm trying to make something that my father could use.
Makes sense. All right, that sounds good. And I know when we talked before, Jeff, the other half of Saltwater Smarts, is less tech inclined than I am. And I told you, if you can create a product that Jeff can easily use, then I think you have a winner here. And Jeff will get a chuckle out of this when he watches it. But I always have to give him a hard time about that. So that was your perception of aquarium controllers. What do you think the general perception is from hobbyists at large of aquarium controllers?
Yeah, I think at large people understand that they're awesome, but at the moment, I think only a certain segmentation of the population even has them or even knows about them. They're very much for people who are really enthusiastic about the trade. It's not what we call it the silent majority right now, which is most people who have an aquarium, who have some semblance of a tank life balance, which isn't everybody.
Right.
And the people who, all they do is think about their tank, they know about controllers and they know how awesome they are, and they're willing to do whatever it takes to get just a little bit better with their tank. But I think that's something that most people aren't willing to put up with, and then moreover, I think the big issue right now is that it's very hard for people to get into the hobby. I was talking to Bob Smith of Ecosystem, the Miracle Mud guys.
Okay.
And he mentioned, he was like, he thinks that the statistic is 1 out of every 10 people who get in the hobby stay in the hobby past 18 months. Because it's just, it's hard. I mean, that's what you guys are really doing a really great job of, which is like education on the hobby and how to do it right.
Well, thanks. I appreciate that.
Yeah. And like we have that same kind of approach, which is, for us, it's like, let's hold people's hands as they get good at the hobby.
Right.
And so we can tell them, hey, don't get a Tang in your 12-gallon nano tank because that's not compatible. And that's just a software side. At the same time, it's like, hey, we're making it easy to schedule when you need to do water changes. Or we're making it easy to say, hey, your pH has been fluctuating a ton, because it turns out that it's not about necessarily being in the right range of levels, but not fluctuating a lot. And if you can keep your environment stable, then you can have a thriving ecosystem.
Right. All right. So you kind of touched on it at various points so far, but what really, if somebody said, look, I know there's other controllers out there, what is FishBit going to bring to me that's different than anything else that's out there?
Yeah, our goal is to make it easier for you to own your tank and enjoy the experience more. So we want to make the things that you love doing, the experience of having that tank, more enjoyable. And the way we do that is we're trying to make it easier for you to not have to suffer through fish dying or corals dying or having a tank malfunction. If you're in this hobby long enough, either you've had a tank malfunction or someone has.
Yep.
And that could be your heater malfunctioning. That could be, overfeeding your fish and then everything dying. It could be just as simple like as a beginner, not letting your tank cycle properly. And so it's a combination of really simple to use hardware, being able to journal everything so that you're able to understand, hey, what did I do yesterday that led to the results today, and what can I do in the future that can lead to better results really easily without having to be on Google for 7 hours and read through 18 different forums which are giving you tons of different advice.
Right. Okay. So I noticed recently you guys had a successful Kickstarter campaign. Can you tell me a little bit more about what the goal with that campaign was and what that will allow you to bring to market?
Yeah. So it turns out that making hardware is a very difficult process and takes a long time. It's a very new world for me. As a software guy, you get stuff out in a couple of weeks or months, and you can continue iterating on that.
Right.
With hardware, it takes much longer of the process, and we know that because we have so much longer to go, we're not ready to go to market yet. But we wanted to get the community involved with this because there's no doubt that once we get our beta units out there, we're going to learn things that we didn't even consider. And I'm super excited to talk to you after we have this and be like, hey, look what we learned. We didn't even think of that. And so we really want the community's involvement while we're finishing the DFM process, or the design for manufacturability process. And so we, because we have so long to go, we didn't just want to be, in our garage making this for the next 6 months without having any community input. And this kind of public beta allowed us to get people aware of what we're doing, to get the community feedback involved, and it's been great. As a community of people, aquarists are the best kind of people to design a product for, just because of how passionate everyone is.
Right. Makes sense. So, what is that exactly? Is this is the beta going to be for these folks that have funded it on Kickstarter? Now, I know you're also planning to send out some testing models. I think we're going to receive one here at Saltwater Smarts as well, so everybody can keep an eye out for us reviewing that. But these people that have funded it, what exactly will they receive?
Yeah, so there's three parts. So the actual monitor part.
And that actually might be a good thing to touch on really quick. Why don't you walk us through what the product is right now? So I'm assuming that's the beta that you're holding in your hand right there.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, just why don't you walk us through that, and then that will make it a little bit clearer what folks that have funded this will be looking at.
Absolutely, yeah. So it's the three parts are a monitor, the controller, and then the app.
Okay.
And so the monitor, which is what I'm holding in my hand, has a temperature, salinity, and pH probe inside of it. And that goes inside of your tank, and it's powered inductively from the outside. One of the things that we hated was, if you look at our tanks, there's 20 wires coming out of it. And that never made sense to us. This is a living, breathing piece of art. So why are we putting all these really ugly things on it? And we realize that most people will probably put this in their sump, and we're okay with that because you still have to look at your sump every day.
Right.
And for us though, the dream is that people will actually put this in their display tank because it's actually we're doing our best to make sure it's beautiful.
Okay.
And so that's the monitor part. The other aspect is the controller part. Which is just like all your other controllers. You can plug in your extensibles. So if you tell us that in plug A is your lights, we'll be able to control them. And one of the things that we're really excited to do with the beta users is find out, what equipment are they running? Are they running specific lights that, we could put in the app so that they could dim through the app very easily, so they could set up through our app really easily?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, another aspect of why we wanted to get involved with the community, so that while we're making the hardware, we can get all the software up and ready so that it's ready to go out of the box.
Okay.
And so just like the rest of controllers, it's you plug in all your extensibles and here's the data. And the third part is how you actually interact with that.
Okay.
And so we have a native iOS app and also a web app. Hopefully by the time this is shipping, we'll have an Android app as well.
Okay.
I'm not a Java developer though, so
So in the meantime, though, the Android folks can use the web app.
Exactly.
Perfect.
So the idea behind this app is, every day we want to send this beautiful curated photo, kind of inspiring, letting you know. And the idea is it's a holistic approach to owning an aquarium. So you could schedule reminders for yourself. So every other week, I want to schedule on Saturday morning my water change.
Okay.
And if you have something coming up, we'll let you know. If one of your levels is off, that'll be red, and we'll be like, hey, your pH has been fluctuating a lot, or your pH is steadily increasing in this range, and you should, do this. And the idea behind that is that we'll be giving advice so that people can help that. Maybe that's a link to a Saltwater Smarts article on how to do a water change. I know you guys have those.
Right. So will those notifications about parameters and things like that, will those actually be a notification sent from the app, or will that just be something when you open up the app you can review those sorts of things?
Both.
Both?
So
okay.
You'll always be able to review your tank in real time.
Okay.
Right now we have it every 5 minutes we're gathering data, and then we send it up to our servers in the cloud, at which the iOS and web apps query.
Okay.
So it doesn't matter if you change phones. All you have to do is download the app, put in your tank, and log in.
Awesome.
Then, including the app, we have, I don't know if you're able to see this, so I'm happy to send screenshots later, but, you have an overview of your levels.
Okay.
One of the things that we're working on, it won't be in the betas. Hopefully we'll be able to release it later. In this idea of simplicity, it's one thing to say, here's all your data. That's the very basic level of a monitor.
Right.
But for a lot of people, and especially if we're going after what we call the silent majority of tank owners, here's all your data doesn't mean anything to them. They don't know what range they need to be on in pH or what's the right temperature for the specific corals they have.
Okay.
And so then we want to go a step further and be like, well, here's your data and this is what it means. And so we have this idea of a stability score, which is, this one-off glance, is my tank doing good?
Okay.
So that, it's not to say like, hey, your tank is super amazing right now, or your tank is really bad, but it's like a quick way to just get a feel for the health of your tank really quickly.
Now, will that
That won't be
be
in the betas.
okay? Will that be based on what sorts of numbers will that be based on? Just general numbers, or will you be able to specify, hey, I have a all SPS reef here, and you guys will suggest, okay, these are the parameters that you're looking at, and you know, you're not quite there yet. You might want to, buffer these things. What sorts of things are you going to be
Yeah,
telling folks?
yeah. So I don't want to shoot the gun here. This definitely is more of like a visionary feature than
Hmm.
something that will be in the beginning, because we want to be very sure that we're doing it the right way and not creating a false number just for fun.
Right.
But the idea is that like the whole idea behind FishBit is that it lets us give advice that's not based on general parameters, but it's actually based on what's happening in your tank in real
Okay.
time. So if you tell us what fish and corals you have, what livestock you have, how big your tank is, then we can start giving you advice that's very tailored to that. Um, some corals and fish like different salinity ranges than others. And then we can actually start recommending the things that stay in those ranges so that you don't have things that are like one set of ranges and things that like another, and then neither win. And the other thing, eventually we even want to include like what are your motivations. Some people just want to have a nice tank that doesn't take a lot of work, and that's fine.
Right.
But that means that they shouldn't be getting SPS. Um, and so we could say, yeah, you can get that awesome Monty, but it's not supported by your light equipment, or it's going to mean you're going to have to put more money in. And some people are willing to spend more money and do tons of work as long as they can have that amazing, beautiful tank. And so we can say, yeah, all of these things are great for you.
Okay.
And so kind of a combination of everything.
So how do you envision? I could see if a lot of folks have FishBit and you're kind of giving them that personal one-on-one advice. How do you envision being able to handle giving that many people specific advice on what they need and what they can have for their aquarium? Will you have specific formulas or questions that they can answer that will give you more information?
Yeah. So definitely starting with a specific, if all you do is put in FishBit in the app and you don't give us any information, like there's a limitation to the amount of help that we can give back. We can say,
Right.
hey, your levels are fluctuating, which is good to know, very good to know, and we can definitely turn off your heater if it's starting to rise really quickly, if your temperature is starting to rise really quickly, and these are great features.
Mm-hmm.
But to touch back on what you just said, like the plan is to have a way for users, if they want to, we're not forcing anybody to do this, give us more information so that we can be more useful to you.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So you showed us, the beta. What sort of a timeline are you looking at for this, actually getting these out into people's hands?
Yeah, so right now we have some early alphas in people's tanks, and we're learning from that.
Okay.
Um, and we're working on the betas. Uh, the Kickstarter, we said we were going to get them to everybody by June, which is certainly a long time. But we wanted to make sure that we weren't lying when we told people, hey, we'll get these out earlier if we couldn't. We're doing our best to get these out as quick as we can.
Right.
But there's obviously a lot of work that has to go into these, and 30 is a really weird number where it's just kind of a big enough number where you're starting to think of like very small scale manufacturing processes,
Right.
and it's less about like, can I solder 30 of these with all of those components in my garage,
Yeah.
and can I CNC 30 casings for all of these, and so we're figuring that out, and going through different kind of options right now. And it's
Okay.
also the same number of, we don't want to spend all our time devoted to the beta, that it's going to make our eventual goal of commercializing FishBit even further out.
Right. Okay.
And so the betas, we're still on track to hit our goal of June.
Okay.
We're still ambitiously optimistic that we might be able to get them out sooner, but don't want to promise anything. Brack will kill me. And then, after that, the plan and the hope is that, part of this, what we're doing on the betas is we're reiterating and redesigning a lot of the board layouts that we have. so that it's even closer to the commercialized version, and we'll be able to get, you know, a lot of learnings from that as kind of an engineering verification test, so that we're that much closer to delivering the commercialized version, which, if all goes well, we'd like to do sometime at the end of 2015,
Okay.
and deliver at the beginning of 2016. But only launching a real crowdfund or real Kickstarter of a commercialized version when we're very aware of where we will be manufacturing this, how much it's going to cost us for each of these. You know, if we sell 500, who'd be making them? If we sell 5,000, who'd be making them? Because it's very common for crowdfunds to not deliver on time, and we just refuse to be one of those companies.
Yeah, that makes sense. So you can kind of under-promise, over-deliver then.
Yeah, I mean, our whole goal is always to continuously under-promise, over-deliver, delight the customers, in any way we can. Our simple thing is that, like, we want to make the experience of owning a tank better, and so we don't want to make it worse by pissing people off. Like, hey, I just gave you $350. Where's my beta?
Right, right. So you're envisioning another Kickstarter after the beta?
I'm not sure how we plan to go to market. We've gone through a variety of different ideas. We definitely, this market lends itself to a direct-to-consumer option, which is great because if we can cut out some middlemen in the way, we can keep the cost down, which is one of the things that we're really trying to do. And so it's very possible that we'll do some form of crowdfund, but at this stage, there's nothing definitive.
Okay. So I kind of want to jump back to something you mentioned earlier. You said there's some alpha versions out there right now. If you can tell us anything about it, have those given you any insights and kind of changed any of your main trajectory on what you've found out from those? Have they just been general hardware testing, or have they changed your mind on features or anything like that?
It's been a combination. A lot of it started as general hardware testing. Does this work? But one of the really interesting things we found out is it really is less about what is my specific pH level right now than what is is it stable? The really interesting thing has been the biggest benefit so far has been this like historical data.
Mm-hmm.
And so it comes back to
So
right
looking
now,
at trends and that sort of things?
exactly.
Okay.
And then one of the things that we'd like to do eventually is trends that you could kind of understand. So right now it's one thing to just look at a graph of your
Right.
pH levels, but if you could look at a graph with your pH levels that had all of these events on top of it, this is when I did a water change, and look, my ammonia levels went down. And look, this is when I added a tang, and look, my ammonia levels went up. That's very basic things, but a lot of, it starts helping you think, oh, this helped cause that.
Right. So you kind of intertwine the information you're collecting to start seeing where there's relationships with these parameters.
Exactly.
Which is insanely helpful for somebody who doesn't quite understand water chemistry. When they can start to see those relationships. I'm a visual person, so something like that obviously appeals to me, and I know there's a lot of folks out there like that. So
exactly.
awesome.
One of the things because software is much quicker than hardware, what we'd like to do is actually get the app out before the hardware, and it's so that it's even if you can't connect it to a FishBit, you could still use it as a good journal. So you could still say, hey, I did a water change, and these are the parameters when I tested them on this day. And then next time you see your parameters, you check your parameters, you could input them again, and you can see how they've changed. And it's not as good as having all of your parameters checked every 5 minutes, but it's a lot better than just doing your water parameter checks and tests every time without really understanding what happened before.
Okay. So that's actually a good segue. I was going to say the people that aren't involved in this beta, they might hear about this and say, I want to get involved with this. How can I, how can I? So it sounds like the app is probably going to be available to anybody when it's released. How else can folks get involved in the meantime before commercial release?
Yeah, we're doing we're spending a lot of our time on user research. And even if we can't give you a beta right now because we have limited resources, like we're not making money on these betas. We're actually losing a little bit. It's we still want to talk to you. We want to understand what are your needs as an aquarist, so that we can make the right product. Because it's very easy for an engineer to kind of assume what other people need and then make a product that's kind of what people need, but not right actually what it is.
Right.
And so we'd love, we try to talk to as many aquarium owners as we can every day. Not even just saltwater, but also freshwater.
And that's a good point. Are you going to target all segments of the aquarium hobby, or are you going to focus on saltwater for now, or what's the plan?
So we're completely focused on saltwater aquarists, but we know, and something that's been very interesting for us, after we launched this Kickstarter, was freshwater people came out. They're like, "I'd love to put this in my tank. Are you doing a freshwater thing?" Even people with turtles were like, "I want to use this for my turtle tank," which is something that I never actually thought was going to happen. And so I don't know how we're going to do it. There's feature creep if we start saying, "Oh, we're going to support this, this, and this," and we're focused on getting this to market sooner than later.
Right.
There is, we could definitely sell a FishBit without the electrical conductivity probe, which measures salinity. That would cut the cost down and still be useful for some freshwater owners.
Okay.
The other part is you don't have to buy it as a bundle. So we're probably going to sell the monitor and the controller separate. And so a freshwater owner who doesn't necessarily care about monitoring his levels as much because tank's a little bit more stable and fish are a little hardier, but he might just want to automate the process.
Okay.
He'll be able to have that benefit.
Perfect. So you said you've been talking to a lot of aquarium hobbyists, and I know you were recently out at Reef Stock. Do you plan to go to any more events this year, or be out there where the general public of the aquarium hobby will be able to talk to you face to face this year?
Yeah. So right now we're living in San Francisco, and we have an open invitation. If anybody is around, we'd love to talk to them.
Okay.
It turns out to be a really amazing place to start an aquarium company. A lot of people around here. Neptune Systems is not too far away. Kessel's down the street. Reef Nutrition's down the street. You have the Steinhardt Aquarium, which is,
right.
I think that 200,000 gallon tank they have is the biggest saltwater aquarium in the U.S. I think. I could be wrong. The Georgia one might be bigger.
Right. Not sure on that, but I know it's one of the big ones. Yeah.
Yeah. It's absolutely stunning. And then you get, real thought leaders with Richard Ross and Matt Wendell, who are working at Steinhardt. Monterey Bay is a couple hours away. So there's a lot of really great benefits to being here. And we have just an open invitation for anyone who's around to come by our office to see what we're doing and talk to us.
Awesome.
We're very active with the local group, the Bay Area Reefers.
Okay.
And then if you're not, Skype is pretty available. It's allowing us to do this. So
right.
We're always happy to jump on a call.
Any other aquarium shows on your agenda for 2015?
Yeah, so...
How about MACNA in DC?
We are going to do MACNA.
Okay,
I
great.
Think they
we'll
just
see you
took
there.
their deposit, which was fun to see. I don't know if we're going to do others. It becomes like a cost-benefit thing.
Right.
Going to Reef Stock was awesome. We got a lot of consumer validation out of it, which is really good to see, because a lot of this was our own intuition. But we also have to, our goal is to get this out there, and so we don't want to be distracted too much by going away on a trip for a fish convention.
Right. Okay. So that kind of brings us up a good question. How many folks do you have on the team right now? In a normal company that isn't kind of bootstrapping everything, they're going to send out the marketing team to the show and everything like that. And I know you guys are a much smaller group right now. So kind of give me the dynamic on the group that's putting this product together.
Yeah, we are a multifaceted team, and everyone has to do a lot of different things. Right now there's 7 of us. 4 of us are full-time and 3 of us are part-time. On the full-time team, there's me. I'm a software developer by trade. There's another software developer who is much better at his craft than I am. And then we have Alex, who you've met. He's kind of a catch-all, doing everything, very active with the user research. So he's often the guy who's talking to people.
He strikes me as kind of the marketing guy. So
Exactly. He's
right.
the marketing business guy, but he's actually very good with tech. So he
Awesome.
helps out all over the place. He's actually right now at a local aquarist house that we met, who has a stunning aquarium.
Awesome.
It's like a 300 gallon. It might be one of the more beautiful things I've ever seen
Huh.
in someone's house.
Okay.
And then there's an electrical engineer, Brack, on the team full time. On the part time side, we have a designer, a mechanical engineer, and actually my brother, who is a kind of a business designer, kind of a lot like Alex. So
Okay.
they're both spending a ton of time on the user research aspects. But for the most part, all of us come from design, engineer, and developer backgrounds. I think one of the interesting things that we're doing is we're, for the most part, a bunch of tech guys going into the fish business rather than guys figuring out the tech side
Right.
of things. So we've worked at startups in the past. We've worked at companies like Uber, design firms like IDEO, which are very product user centered firms, and products like the connected smart car and all
Okay.
sorts of things.
So how
So,
many of the team have a history with aquariums?
so when we started, I was the only one with a real history of owning an aquarium. Me and my dad got into it when I was just in middle school. We got a hobby together, and then I went all the way down the rabbit hole. By the end of high school, I was working at a local fish store, and I was taking coral and fish home. I wasn't taking money home.
That's kind of how it often goes.
Exactly. But as we've been more involved with this, and I got the team on board, they've got really into it. Alex was doing a lot of work with aquaponics, which is very similar problem. So it's still understanding the environment so that you can optimize for positive outcomes.
Right.
And the environment is water quality. And for us, it's keeping Nemo and Dory alive, and for him, it was growing different produce. But that was where his background is. He's pretty much diving in as deep in the rabbit hole as I did when I first started.
He's caught the disease, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to,
Right.
especially when it's our job. So
Yeah, definitely. Awesome. So I kind of want to just do a wrap up right now and kind of just give everybody the really important points about FishBit. So I know we already mentioned a lot of them, but let's talk about dates. Everybody's going to be interested in when they can expect these things. I know you can't talk in particulars right now, but give me kind of the synopsis.
yeah, and it's not that I don't want to be secretive. We strive to be very open and very credible with everything we say, which is why sometimes I struggle to say things.
Mm-hmm.
The betas are on track to ship by June, like we said with our Kickstarter. The app should be out and there will be a manual version that you can connect to a FishBit, but will still be useful if you don't have a FishBit. That should be out before the betas. That's my territory, so I'm the one who takes the blame if that doesn't happen. And then we really would like to start selling these at the end of this year, and ship early next year. But like I said before, we're only going to launch when we're very aware that we'll be hitting our timelines. And that means we have our final BOM. We have completely designed for manufacturability, designed for assembly, designed for cost. It means we know where we're getting all of our components and who's making it, whether we sell 100 of these or 10,000 of these. And once we're very aware of all of that, then we can come out with a final date, like, hey, we're starting to sell here and we're shipping here, because we just don't want to lie to people and say, there's been too many Kickstarters right now where people have lost faith in the company because they can't deliver.
Right.
And the reality is it's one thing to build something for yourself. So I built this over a weekend with a buddy on an Arduino. It's another thing to build something that can be made for a lot of people on our own boards, which is where we are now. And it's a very other thing to build something that can be made thousands of times by other people.
All right, mass production.
Exactly. And so we're in the process right now of getting that mass production working. So we can make 30 of these, which is what we're doing, and then it's how do we get these mass productionable?
Awesome. So any initial thoughts on where people will be able to buy these, or have you not even delved into that topic yet?
We're trying to figure it out. We really are interested in a model where we can go direct to the consumer, and we're also really thinking through how we can make people who maintain a lot of tanks and own a local fish store their lives easier. And so the ultimate goal for us would be selling directly to the people who are very aware of the industry and saying, I want to monitor, I can Google that, and then they'll find FishBit's site. Mm-hmm. And the other, aspect is getting to local fish stores by making their lives easier, by being, if they can give better advice to their clients because they know exactly what's happening in their tanks, that's valuable for them. And so if we can make their lives easier, we think they'll want to carry our products. We really hope that we can, I don't know if we'll be able to cut the distributor out. This is a great industry that it's possible, and if we can do that, we can get this cheaper than not. So we'll see.
So if a retailer out here is listening to that, would you be interested in talking to them at this point, or are you kind of holding off on that?
Absolutely. So as much as we want to talk to people who own tanks so that we can build the right product, we also want to talk to the people who are selling to these guys, the retailers, the people, how do we make their lives easier? They're the ones who, half the time, they're maintaining 50 tanks too. So they have a very different understanding of problem sets, which would be really great to get their feedback from.
Awesome. All right, well, that about does it. The only thing I want to ask is there anything I haven't asked you or we haven't talked about that you want to tell hobbyists about?
I'm sure there's like 1,000 things that as soon as we
catching you off guard right here,
will definitely come up. But we really want to just build something. We started this because we wanted to build a really cool product that provides a lot of value. We think we're on our way of doing that, and so we just want to continue to make sure that we can hit that.
Awesome. All right, well, Nathan, I appreciate your time today. It's been great finding out about FishBit. I know there's a lot of folks out there who are curious and will learn a lot from this. So thanks again. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying likewise. I really appreciate you taking the time. The philosophy that Saltwater Smarts has is definitely the same kind of approach that we're trying to take to the industry. And it's an amazing hobby. So
awesome.
The more people in it, the better.
Fantastic, Nathan. All right, well, we'll talk soon. So there you have it. FishBit, your aquarium made simple. So what do you think? Is this the next big thing in aquarium monitoring and control? Tell us in the comments below. Also, I'll include some links in the description if you want to get in touch with FishBit or learn more about the product they're putting together. And that's that. I have been Caribbean Chris Aldrich. This has been Salt Speak, and I'll see you next time.